What is going on today, Debt Free Mafia? I'm so glad that you're here today. I wanted to talk a little bit about life insurance and why you should consider it and what you should stay away from and what you should gravitate to when it comes to life insurance. I'm excited to go through all that stuff, and stay tuned to the very end. I kind of wanted to go over about what you should expect for your life insurance and kind of the big reasons why you want to have in life insurance and why it's important and why I recommend it to my clients. But before we do that, I wanted to do my introduction. Guys, if you don't know me, my name is Rick. I am a financial coach, and I'm also the owner of the Debt Free Mafia. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm so excited that you're watching this video. The fact that you're checking this video out probably means that you are considering life insurance or already have and just wanted to reaffirm what you've already bought into, right? And so I just thank you so much for doing that. Go ahead, if you don't mind, one of the biggest ways you can help me out is by hitting the like button. I know every YouTuber says it, but it helps me out tremendously. You have no idea. So please do that. And also, if you're not part of the Debt Free Mafia, hit subscribe. We want you here. Don't have to be debt free. You just gotta dig the debt free vibe. So hit subscribe. So guys, appreciate you. Let's jump into it. So let's talk a little bit about life insurance. What is life insurance? So let's talk about insurance as a whole. Insurance as a whole is essentially you transferring risk from yourself to somebody else. And so basically what it is like, when you have car insurance, what you're doing is you're like, well, I'm not planning on getting in a wreck today. But if somebody were to wreck into me, I need somebody to pay for my car because I don't want to come out of pocket to have to pay for a new car or anything like that. So what you're doing is the insurance company is taking on the risk of you getting into an accident and them having to fork over the money for you to get a new car, right? That's how car insurance works anyways. But life insurance is essentially the same thing. If you unfortunately went before your time, or maybe it was your time but went before you were expecting, what life insurance does is it comes in and it is a large sum of money usually that is there to help whoever is still surviving in your family, or there's different scenarios, but essentially to protect financially your family if you were to leave and there's a loss of income in the family, and it's there to protect and help take care of the bills and funeral and house payments and XYZ. So we're going to get into that. That's essentially what life insurance is. But there's two prominent kinds of life insurance. So the first one we're going to talk about is whole life and why I do not recommend whole life. There's some other names that are very similar. We call them permanent life insurance. I think there's universal life insurance, and then I can't remember exactly what there's universal life insurance, and then there's whole life, and then there's variable universal life. So those are some other ones that you might have. And here's why we don't want to consider those. First off, they're permanent, right? So they're there for the extended amount of time of your life. Whole life is one of the smartest things that they ever called it, because it makes you think that your life as a whole is being taken care of. It's going to be there your whole life, right? So it's one of the smartest things. So it's very appealing just in the name. But if you look into it, essentially what it is way more expensive, and a lot of the times insurance agents will try to sell you on the idea that it's an investment, that you get a bigger rate of return on it than you would if you did like term life insurance. Well, we're going to talk about that and why it's a scam, really. So essentially, whole life is more expensive, and it's there for a really long time. And it can build up essentially a fund. Sometimes, depending on the different life insurance, you can cash that fund in and get the money back, depending on your situation, if you don't need the policy anymore. However, I want to talk about that. One reason I'll caution you against whole life is because we want to live a life where we don't need life insurance anymore. We want to get to the point where our wealth is built up so much that we don't have to worry about risk. If maybe you or your spouse or somebody in your family dies, you don't have to worry about it. So that's why we don't want whole. We don't want permanent life insurance. We want to focus on term life insurance, which is a shorter amount of time, and it's cheaper. We'll talk about that in a second. But again, you don't want to plan on having to have life insurance your whole life. You want to take care of your finances to where you don't have whole life your whole life. So that's why we focus really big on paying off our debt, building an emergency fund, buying a home, paying off the home, and investing really hard, right? So all of those things will build wealth way better than a whole life policy ever will. A lot of whole life insurance agents will tell you that it's the best way to invest, which is just a complete lie. They'll tell you that it has a huge rate of return that beats the stock market, which is also a big lie. While it will have a rate of return, the rate of return hardly ever keeps up with the stock market. And then on top of that, they never never mention all of the fees that go into it that actually eat at all of your rate of return, like the fees that the insurance agent gets. Also, most insurance agents don't want you to know this, but they get more money from whole life policies than they do any other kind of insurance. So the wealthiest insurance man to ever exist in history, he was really good at selling whole life insurance, right? So he made a fortune off of selling whole life. And so I caution you about that. It sounds good, but I promise you it's not the best deal. So whole life, kind of got that out of the way. I advise you to stay far away from it. Let's talk about term life. So term life is essentially you're going to have life insurance for a term. They can come in all kinds of different packages. It can be like 10 years, 12 years, 15, 20, 25 even. It just depends. And that kind of is also up to you and what your outlook and plan is like. I recommend typically kind of going on the lower end, like anywhere from 12 to 15, because you can always reevaluate once that term runs out and then just get term life again. One of the best parts about term life is it's way cheaper than whole life, so it'll be a lot better on your budget, and you can also select the amount of money that you want it to be. So let's talk about that. So essentially, before I talk about what you need there, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Term life is just better because it's cheaper and you don't have to worry about it being around ever or forever, right? So if you have an insurance agent that recommends term life over whole life, they're a great agent. I recommend sticking with them. If you don't want to do that, do some shopping around, look specifically for term life. Try to figure out what works best for you, 12, 15, 20, 25 years even maybe, and check that out. Essentially, it's very helpful because you want to have a large sum set aside for you. So some of you listening to this already have a insurance policy, a life insurance policy through your employer. And I would urge you to check out and make sure you know what the claim amount is, because most of the time the claim amount is no more than like a lot of times it's only $10,000, and it can be up to like $50,000. Your company might be more than that, but a lot of the times it's way cheaper than that. That is not a good amount of money to have waiting on if somebody were to pass away, right? That'll take care of funeral expenses and maybe just a fraction of some bills, right? What I recommend to my clients is that you have 10 to 12 times your annual income, gross, not net, able to cash in if something were to happen. So if you were married and you were making $50,000 a year, I would recommend bare minimum that you have $500,000 in life insurance should something happen to you, because what that's going to do is it's going to pay off the house, it's going to pay for any bills, any debt that could get transferred to solely on your spouse, anything like that. I recommend that you do that. So more comfortably, it'd be closer to 12. So it'd be like $600,000 in that person's case, right? So I wouldn't go like terribly high, because then you're going to start making your monthly payments on your life insurance super expensive. But if you can afford it and you think you need it in your situation, you can up it even more than that if you want to. But that's a general rule of thumb that you want to do. Again, I would do 10 to 12 times your income for 15 to 20 years, depending on your situation. And then you can always up it. But here's the real reason. And this is kind of why I wanted you to stick around to the end. This is a big deal. When it comes to life insurance, or when it comes to, it feels morbid a little bit thinking about death, right? And I get that, but it's smart to think about it when it comes to planning a little bit. There are two things I recommend to all of my clients that they get, and I recommend to you that you get. I mean, get them as soon as you possibly can. That is a will and an estate plan. And then also number two is having life insurance. Those two ways are the best way that you can love on your family should something happen to you after you die. There is no better way that you can love on your family after you die than those two things, because what it's going to do, I've already talked about will and trusts and estate planning already, but essentially you can keep the government out of it, and you can dictate where things need to go and how things need to be handled and how kids need to, or who kids need to go to. It just makes it so much easier on everybody else if you have that planned should something happen. Life insurance, super important, right? You don't want your spouse left with a hefty house payment. You don't want your spouse left with debt that you guys are still working on, or kids' colleges, right? A lot of people want to leave enough for their kids to be able to go to college without debt. is just one of the best ways to plan to help people after you've gone. So I know I've rambled just a little bit, but I'm passionate about people taking care of business when it comes to life insurance. So please go and check that out. Again, stay away from a whole life and universal life. Stick to term right now. It's way cheaper. It's going to be easier on your budget, and it takes care of exactly what we talked about, and that's loving on your family should something happen. It's super important, guys. Seriously, if you don't have it, you need to go take care of it. Guys, I appreciate you stopping by again. If you don't mind hitting a like if this was helpful. I'm not an insurance agent. I'm not giving you insurance. I am giving you insurance advice, but I'm not saying to use anybody specific. I'm just using general rules of thumb that I tell my clients. It's up to you on how you want to plan. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Do you have life insurance? I am curious. It's like around 61% of Americans don't have enough life insurance. Let me know if you're one of those people below, or if you do have enough. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Also, go ahead and hit subscribe. We'd love to have you there. We're going to be doing a giveaway at 1,000 subscribers, and we're so close. We're only like 25 away. So, guys, I appreciate you, and I hope you have a really good day. We'll talk to you later. Peace.